Welcome back to the next concept of discrete random variables, where this concept is something that you already know. So thankfully, we already have some sort of understanding of this, but I have to go through this because it is critical to set you up for the next portion, which is what this whole entire chapter is going to be centered around, right? The concept. So this is a stepping stone to the next one. And I also cannot assume that everyone knows this yet. So we're going to go through measures of central tendency right now, and I'm going to show you how this whole thing links to what you already know. Okay, so why do we want to compare data in the first place, right? There's many reasons why we want to compare data. So for example, under the idea of comparing two sets of data, right? For instance, let's say I have my first set of data being a class of students, right? I have class A, class B, two classes, right? And in both classes, everyone takes a math exam. So let's say class A, I have 4 packs, class B, I have 4 packs over here. And I want to compare between these two classes. Who perform better, right? I want to compare who perform better. But of course, there has to be a single point of comparison, right? I need to have a very objective way to compare things. And how do I actually compare between these two? So in order for me to compare between these two classes, I actually need to have a metric to actually compare. So this metric is what we call the central tendency, or measure of central tendency. So it's what we call our central tendency, right? It's a value that is also known as the central tendency. So based on the value of central tendency. So what is this central tendency? Central tendency is basically any value that all values in the data set can be measured against, right? Okay, I'm just going to bring it down. So as long as we have a measure of central tendency that is basically a value that all the values in each data set can be measured against, this gives us a fair platform of comparison between the two different classes. And what are the 3 different central tendencies that you already know from secondary school? There are 3, right? That is the mean, median, and mode. So mean is being the average, median being literally the middle data, and mode being the data that has the highest frequency. So these 3 values, they are all central tendency measures because they are values that all the values in each data set can be measured against. And these 3 gives us the platform to compare between these two classes, right? I could compare the mean, I could compare the median, I could compare the mode. So for this chapter specifically, we are going to be focusing on the mean, right? And why do we want to focus on the mean? Because the mean, by far, out of the 3, has the most holistic representation of all the different values. So we take the mean because it has the most holistic. And why is it the most holistic? Because it takes into account all values, right? And for median, it's not as holistic as mean, but definitely there's an upside to median as well, right? Because median, what it does is that it only takes the middle value only. So when there is an anomaly, the mean is no longer that accurate because it will take into account the anomaly. But median is not affected by the anomaly, and anomalies usually happen at the tail ends, right? So it's not to say that who is better, but is who is more appropriate in which context. Okay, but for this whole chapter, we're just going to keep it simple, and we're just going to be using the mean. So just a recap for you, right? How do we calculate mean? So mean over here is what we call the average, and it's basically the sum, so the summation of all different values over the number of values. As simple as that. Okay, and with that said, that's basically it for measures of central tendency. Just need to know that what a measure of central tendency is, which is essentially this whole thing here, and just note that there are 3, but we're just going to be focusing on 1 over here for the rest of this chapter. And the formula is actually this to measure mean. But honestly, with the calculator, with the GC, your life is a lot easier. You can just use the GC to calculate. Okay, so try to use the GC to calculate the next question that we're going to try, which is this. And I'm going to show you how to use the GC in a moment. But if you have your tutorial notes with you right now, follow the tutorial, the printout on your notes to try to calculate this using your GC. If not, pause this video and return to this video when you're done, and I'll show you how to do it on my iPad. Okay, so I have magically spawned TI-84 Plus CE on the screen. Okay, this is the GC that I personally use, but it's on computer. Okay, so if you all want, you can just search ti84calculator.com. There's a free GC online that you can use to help you with your calculations if you forget to bring your GC to school. Okay, so let me show you how to do it. First thing, we need to input these values into a table. So how you do that is you go to stat, then you click 1, so 1, and then you see that here you have all the values. Now you just need to key the values manually, so 80. Press enter, then you go to the next value 51, then you press enter, then you go to the next value 72, and then you press enter, and then you go to 89, press enter, 68, you press enter, 60, and then you press enter. So now you have keyed all the values inside L1. So remember, in this table, under the column of L1. So now you want to calculate the average of the values in L1. So how you do that is you go back to stat, then you go to calculate, so you shift left, then you click one dash variable. That means one dash variable means there's only one variable, right? You're not calculating two variables, you're just calculating one. So you just click one, and then make sure that your list is L1, because your list is literally L1, right? That's where you key your values. And then you just go down to calculate, press enter, and then you see that X bar, which is the symbol for mean, is 70, right? And that matches the answer that we have over here. So therefore the answer is 70, or by GC, X bar is 70. And that's the final answer to this question over here. Okay, so hope that this tutorial was helpful. Let me know if you have any other questions in the comments. If not, I'll see you in the next video for the next concept.